Greetings, history buffs, and welcome to episode 2 of History Lessons with a History Maker. I am your host, the real wrestler Gavin McGavin, and today I take on Jack Bonza for the EPW Coastal Championship at Newcastle Pro Wrestling way back in January of 2017. As we get underway, the announcements are being made by JT Robinson, a very famous and popular figure in New South Wales professional wrestling and indeed Australian wrestling. He has spent time as a wrestler, as a commentator, as an announcer, and even a video editor. Matter of fact, he may have edited together the match we are watching together right now. First, he is introducing my opponent, Jack Bonza, known as the real man at this stage in his career. Jack Bonza and I first met in Adelaide during a 01 Australia tryout, which coincided with an event that was taking place at the Thebarton Theatre. That night, I actually teamed together with Chris Weiss to take on the team of Dick and Balls. JT about to announce me here as weighing in at 70 kilos, a little bit heavier than I am now, a little bit thicker through the chest and shoulders. Just a bit of a change in my focus and my diet in the last couple of years have made me a little bit leaner, a little bit meaner, and definitely a lot fitter. Now, this match was significant for many reasons. First off, it was the first time the Coastal Championship had been taken interstate. It was obviously my first defense of that Coastal title, and it was indeed Gavin McGavin's first ever singles main event match. When I did meet Jack Bonza, I had the opportunity to get in the ring and roll around with him a little bit, so I knew already that he was quite technically proficient on the ground. So I was ready to expect these sorts of things, the standing switches and whatnot. I think a lot of people who knew either of us knew that this match was going to feature some technical wrestling and two guys who really knew how to get it done on the mat. I was getting a bit of a mixed reaction here, a lot of the fans not knowing who I was, and well, they knew that they didn't like Bonza, so they kind of liked me by default, I think. Here you can see we're engaging in a Greco-Roman knuckle lock. Now, I'm smart enough to know that I'm not stronger than Jack Bonza, but what this does, this exchange allows me to find out just how strong he is. Here I'm resisting as much as I can, and I'm getting a sense of how strong this guy is, which is going to help me make decisions later on in the match. Don't want to keep those shoulders down for too long there, Gavin. Now, I've been known to go on record as saying that Jack Bonza is the Bob Backlund of Australian wrestling. Now, obviously, the reasons for me saying that at first were based off his physical appearance, the big, strong, powerful barrel chest, the tinge of red to the hair, and the no-nonsense, serious demeanour. I sincerely hope that if Jack Bonza hears me call him that, he takes it as the compliment that it was meant as. The thing is, though, that he is a much more diverse and varied opponent than I expected him to be. As I said, I'd only encountered him once or twice. I'd seen a few bits and pieces, but he is one of the most well-rounded wrestlers in Australia, and that comes down to the training that he has received here and internationally with people like Mike Quack. He is very technically proficient, as we can see right here as he takes me down, but he's also a master of the power game. He is very adept at submission, and as I'm going to find out later in this match, he can strike with the best of them as well. Oh, lovely little bit of agility there from Gavin McGavin, leading straight into my favourite takedown of all time, the fireman's carry. I was actually reminiscing the other day with Aaron Hawke of Plague fame about how much we love the fireman's carry as a takedown, and jokingly suggested that we should make a fireman's carry calendar. I think it would make $0, but I'd certainly keep a copy on my wall. Whoop, hip toss reverse into a monkey flip there. A little bit more agility from Gavin McGavin. See, trying to target a limb in this match, it's quite hard to do when you've got an opponent as powerful as Jack Bonza. And the problem is, with someone as wily as him, as soon as you go for one body part, you often leave one of your own open, and there he goes picking my leg. Thankfully, I have studied my Doug William tapes and managed to get him straight into a headlock. Now here you can hear this chant that earlier on Well, during the entire match, I thought was boring, which had obviously terrified me, considering my first ever main event, the crowd was chanting boring. But it turns out that what they were chanting was baldy. They were teasing Jack Bonza about having a bald head, until he pointed out quite rightly that he actually shaves his head. Oop, a little bit of a slip on the apron there, and boom! Shades of the shoot fighter. Now, I hadn't been wrestling as the real wrestler for that long at this point in my career. It was probably less than 6 months. So I was still finding what my style was as the real wrestler. As you can see here, a decent crowd in attendance on the Central Coast for Newcastle Pro Wrestling. This is a venue that they tend to run on the school holidays. Central Coast being a holiday destination for a lot of New South Wales families. And it gives them access to the sorts of fans that they target. Newcastle Wrestling, even though they share quite a similar roster to PWA, the shows are quite different in terms of feel and their approach. PWA, since this time, has gone on to relabel themselves as Black Label and target the 18 plus demographic, whereas Newcastle Pro Wrestling, back during the time of this match and still to this day, are more of a family-focused, kid-friendly show. Jack Bonza utilising a cravat here not to try and submit me, because it's not a hold that you're probably going to get a submission with, but more just to dominate me and to let me know that he is in full control, that he is dictating the tempo of this match and he's going to wrestle it the way that he wants to. Obviously a lot more experience than me when it comes to main event matches, so while I'm fighting here, I'm actually learning a lot about what it means to be a main event wrestler. Nice little reversal there. Pass by into the springboard quesadora. Not the wheelbarrow, the quesadora into the prawn hold. 1-2. Big kick out. Ooh, kick to the guts. Not as pretty as a quesadora, nor is... Oh! Actually, yeah, that was pretty pretty. That was a very nicely executed backbreaker, but I don't think I appreciated it as much at the time. Again, the lessons I'm learning here during this match about how to dictate the pace against your opponent. Jack Bonza there just reminding them how bald he is and kicking me right in the spine. I'm learning about setting the tone, setting the pace, wrestling your kind of match and not letting your opponent dictate terms. So while I was over there to try and make a name for myself, I was also there receiving an education at what looks like the School of Hard Knocks right now. Oh, right on the back of my head. Now, I mentioned that I was over in Newcastle trying to make a name for myself, and the way that this trip came about is actually the fact that I took it upon myself. Once I won the Coastal Championship, I knew that it was new, I knew that no one had heard of it, I knew that it had no lineage or legacy, and I wanted to rectify that. I also wanted to use the title to help elevate my career. So I contacted Newcastle Pro Wrestling, not the other way around. I kept an eye on their social media and I saw that they had 3 events coming up in the space of 8 days, and I thought, you know what, if I fly myself over there, yes, wrestlers, sometimes you have to fly yourself interstate. If you want an opportunity, sometimes you need to make it, particularly if you come from Western Australia. The flights to and from Perth to Sydney and back, because you can't fly direct to Newcastle, it's a flight and then a 2.5 hour train ride or car ride. You need to put that travel in. The cost of those flights or that travel is going to be $400 or $500 sometimes. So if you want a promoter to fork that money out for you instead of a $50 flight from a guy from Melbourne, or no flight at all from a guy 2 hours down the road in New South Wales, you need to be worth it. But how can you prove to them you're worth it unless you make the first step and you take yourself out there and you show yourself to those people? So I had a look, I saw that there were 3 shows in the space of 8 days, and I flew myself there and I said, hey, if you can use me, I'm up for anything. And I was extremely lucky that they were happy to put me in the main event of not only this show, but the other 2 shows as well. I wrestled my first ever main event. Whoop. Oh, that one hurt the neck. I wrestled my first ever main event on this night against Jack Bonza. The very next night, I wrestled a main event against Concrete Davidson at a Lawn Bowls Club. And then a week later, I wrestled a main event match for Newcastle Pro Wrestling against Caveman Ugg. The experience I got from this trip was second to none. You can do all the training you want, you can go to all the seminars you want, but getting in there, getting the match experience, getting the real world experience will elevate your career. Now that doesn't mean that I had a holiday while I was there. The entire time I was there, I think I was there for 11 days in total. Every single day of the week I was training at either PWA school in Sydney or Newcastle Pro School, the House of Free Fighting, up in Newcastle. And if I had to get between them, I'd take an hour and a half car ride or a 2-hour train ride. I would do what I had to do to get myself in front of the right people and training with the right people, because those are two of the best schools you're going to find in this country. We can see here after my little rant that the pace of this match has picked right up. I'm starting to get back in control of Jack Bonza after he had been dominating me, putting me in some very uncomfortable submission holds and really, as I said, enforcing his will on me. Here I am wasting my time pandering to the crowd, and it's backfired on me. I think another thing I learned from this match is I don't need to worry about what the crowd thinks. Oh, here it is. Oh, the worst blockbuster you'll ever see, which resulted in my hip bone hitting Jack Bonza on the bridge of his eye and actually busting him open, sending him to hospital after this match. I was extremely disappointed in myself with that one. I've been using the blockbuster for years and hitting it pretty much perfectly, even from a springboard. But on this night, there was a few crucial mistakes that I made, as in not going off the top rope, instead going off the second, but also a little bit of a learning opportunity in terms of, 1, 2, kick out there. A learning opportunity in terms of how to interact with cables instead of ropes. Now, those of you who wrestle will know the difference. Those of you who don't might not know, but not all ropes are created equal or even out of the same material. At EPW, for instance, we have rope for our ring ropes. Here at Newcastle Pro and at PWA and at just about everywhere else in Australia, the ring ropes are actually cables. Now, cable, obviously, you can see his eye busted open there. Cable does not respond the same way that rope does when you jump on or bounce off it. So I didn't get the bounce that I was expecting. I didn't go far enough. Whoop, bang! Down I go. A little bit of revenge, I think, here. Yep, knee lift straight to the jaw. And 1, 2. I'll tell you what, if he had hooked the leg there, he might have beaten me. Anyway, I didn't get the amount of spring that I was hoping to get, and unfortunately, the move didn't look pretty. It wasn't as effective as it could have been, and I ended up busting his eye right open, which is very unfortunate. I am someone who prides myself on the quality of his execution in matches, and that was a bit of a shame. Particularly, as I said, I was there to try and endear myself to a whole new side of the country. Just watching this back now and just watching the way that Bonza's walking around the ring and he feel the balance issues that he's having, I wouldn't be too surprised if I'd actually given him a little bit of a concussion after that move. I know he did have to go to hospital and get a few stitches put in his eye, but he was still good to wrestle the next weekend. Now, and as I said earlier, that the reason that I went on this trip, and the reason that I've gone on these trips to New South Wales, is to elevate myself, but also to elevate what I represent. And at this point in time, I was representing the Coastal Championship, but also EPW. So that's why I take these trips, because it benefits me and it benefits those around. Oh, crash and burn. That just came down to a lack of confidence. My confidence had been shot from earlier, and I just didn't execute again. Now here is actually a little trick that I picked up. Just thinking on my feet, this was the first time I ever actually did this, and those who've watched me recently know that the top rope hung DDT is one of my bigger moves. Hooking both legs there, pulling away from the rope, and Bonza is still able to kick out. I see that so often. Wrestlers hook the close leg and forget about the far leg, which is close to the rope, and any wrestling fan knows if you get that foot under the rope, you will not get the 3 count. Again, as I was saying, the reason why I take these trips is because every time I go there, I learn something new. Whether it be during a match or whether it be at training. Because every time I go over, I make sure I train with PWA and I train with Newcastle Pro Wrestling. People like Robbie Eagles and Madison Eagles and Jack Bonza and Mick Moretti. So many quality trainers. At Newcastle, it's Adam Hoffman and his crew. There are so many fantastic wrestlers on the other side of the country that we can learn from by not only training with, but competing with. Jack Bonza just struggling now to get out of the ankle lock, and once it's grapevine, that spells the end for any opponent. It has led to some very famous victories in many, many title matches, or not quite tapping out there. Surely it's only just a matter of time. Gavin McGavin is all about submission wrestling. In recent years, that really has become my MO. And a lot of submission wrestling, not necessarily the holds themselves, because I already knew quite a lot of the holds, but ways to weaken those limbs or ways to get myself in submission positions came from some of the training I did in New South Wales. Whoop. Jack Bonza just using strength to overcome here. And the training that I got in New South Wales wasn't just, stomp to the face and oi! This is what happens when you got such a big boy in there and a huge big German too. And my dead body laying across his face, his ankle gave out. He could not hold the bridge. As I was saying, the trips I've taken in New South Wales, there was this trip, there was another trip a few months later to wrestle Unsocial Jordan. There was another trip later on for the first ever Quack week where I learnt an amazing amount. 4 10-hour days in a row. And then just getting to also just sit and talk and shoot the shit with Mike Quackenbush. It's these things that have helped make me the wrestler that I am today. And I also believe that these trips in early 2017 really helped put the Coastal Championship on the map. That's what this web series or this YouTube series is all about. It's about the Coastal Championship. It's like fire back with a big chop there and another. And, not a very COVID-19 friendly spit chop. These matches helped make the Coastal title mean something. Because as I said when I won it, it's not just the West Coast, it's every coast. The Coastal Championship was a championship that I saw as being a title that could be a national title. Travelled all around this country. And I took it to New South Wales on several occasions. I took it to Melbourne. Big lariat turned me inside out. This could be it. We could have a new Coastal Champion, and no. And you know why no? Because Jack Bonza didn't hook the leg, so he must be concussed. Because I know he's too smart a wrestler to forget something like that when he is of sound mind and body. Good lord, that baldy guy is still going. We're getting down to the final stages of the match here, and I felt so much pressure. The pressure to represent the title, the pressure to represent EPW, and the pressure to not lose the championship. This is the first time it was being defended. You imagine if I win at Reawakening and take it in state and then lose? I wouldn't be able to show my face in Perth again. I went there to make the title mean something, not to lose it for EPW. And I hope that through these series of matches, as a matter of fact, I know through these series of matches, through all the defenses that I had of the Coastal Championship, that it did mean something, that it helped build up a title that could help build up wrestlers. Sometimes the title makes the man, sometimes the man makes the title. In this match, you're watching both happen at the same time. Well, Jack Bonza rolls through 1, 2, and again, that right there could have been it. Whoop. There we go into the ankle lock again, but Jack Bonza, he's all a clever wrestler. He has me scouted. He's got that ankle lock scouted. But I've got the lariat scouted. I've got the backbreaker scouted. And there's the history maker for the 1, 2, 3, and still your Coastal Champion, Gavin McGavin. The feeling of elation and relief to get through my first ever main event was pretty strong here, but I was also feeling pretty beaten up. I'd just gone close to 20 minutes with Jack Bonza, one of the best wrestlers in this country, who, quite frankly, needs to be seen in more places more often. And here you're going to see me tell the country, not just the West Coast, every coast. Well, that does it for episode 2. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you to Newcastle Pro Wrestling for the footage. I would love it if you could continue this journey with me, so please like, share, subscribe. Thanks for watching History Lessons with a History Maker, and I will see you next week for episode 3 when we make our way back to EPW.